Water, the simplest thing a human needs, yet the rarest blessing in many parts of Africa. Imagine waking up each morning knowing the sun will burn the same way it always does, but you might not have a single drop of clean water to drink. That's the daily reality for millions across the continent, where entire communities walk miles under the scorching Sahel sun just to fill a bucket that might not even be safe to drink. But in the heart of West Africa, in a nation once forgotten by the world, something extraordinary began to happen. In Burkina Faso, a young leader named Ibrahim Traoré decided that the time for suffering was over. His mission was simple but bold: bring water to his people, no matter the odds. What started as a plan soon became a miracle. 100 wells in 100 days. Burkina Faso sits in the very center of West Africa, a landlocked country where the sun seems to hang lower and hotter. It's a place of red soil, endless horizons, and people with hearts stronger than the land itself. But water has always been the test of survival. The Sahel region, stretching from Senegal to Chad, is one of the driest on Earth. Rain falls only a few months each year, and when it does, it floods quickly, disappearing into the ground before most can capture it. Rivers like the Mohone, the Nakambe, and the Niger tributaries carry life, but only to those lucky enough to live nearby. For millions in rural Burkina Faso, the rest of the year means walking for hours under heat that reaches 40 degrees Celsius just to find a muddy pool. For decades, promises came and went. Aid agencies arrived with cameras and projects, but when funding dried up, so did the wells. Rural communities were left abandoned. Then came 2022, a year of change, of revolution, of hope. When Ibrahim Traoré took leadership, many outside doubted him. They called him too young, too ambitious, too idealistic. But he didn't come to debate. He came to act. Within months of taking power, his government launched what would become one of the fastest and most effective water initiatives in modern African history. The target was not symbolic, 100 wells in 100 days, a number that represented action, accountability, and faith. The story began in the provinces, Somme, Yaga, and Oudalan, regions long plagued by drought and displacement. Engineers, soldiers, and volunteers came together with one goal: drill. They worked day and night, sometimes in remote villages cut off by desert winds. They used locally adapted rigs, simple yet powerful, capable of reaching aquifers up to 100 meters deep. These weren't imported luxuries. These were machines built or repaired by Burkinabe hands, proof that development doesn't have to come from the outside. Every well that struck water became a celebration. Children danced, women cried, elders lifted their hands in prayer. For the first time in decades, the sound of drilling meant life, not another failed promise. Each borehole brought more than water. It brought dignity. Because in Africa, water is not just a resource. It's the foundation of independence. According to Burkina Faso's Ministry of Water and Sanitation, the nation's access to clean drinking water rose from 52% in 2015 to over 70% by 2024. But what made Traoré's initiative different was its speed and focus. It didn't wait for international loans or donors. It was a national effort, funded, driven, and executed by Burkinabe themselves. In just 100 days, more than 300 communities saw new boreholes and water towers installed. Over 200,000 citizens gained daily access to clean, safe water, for drinking, for farming, for life itself. Across Africa, similar stories are unfolding. In Niger, local engineers are restoring old French-era wells using new solar pumps. In Mali, community cooperatives are digging mini reservoirs to support herders during the dry season. In Ghana, the government's One Village, One Dam initiative has helped small farmers retain rainwater for crop irrigation. These efforts may seem different, but together, they represent something powerful: the rebirth of African self-reliance. For too long, Africa's water story was written by others, NGOs, donors, and foreign advisors who meant well but often misunderstood local realities. Projects came with big budgets and bigger promises, yet many collapsed within years. The difference with Traoré's approach lies in ownership. His message was simple: we will no longer wait for others to save us. And that message resonated far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Across Africa, people saw a leader who didn't make speeches. He made wells. Water access changes everything. In rural zones, it means girls no longer spend half their day fetching water. They can go to school. It means mothers can grow vegetables, feed their children, and sell surplus in the markets. It means health clinics can operate hygienically. Diseases like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid, once rampant, start to fade. Agriculture flourishes, livestock thrive, and hope returns to places where the land once seemed cursed. In Burkina Faso, the ripple effect of water is visible in every province that received new wells. Farmers have begun replanting trees around water points, slowly reversing desertification. Small fish ponds have been built, turning dry plains into micro-ecosystems. Every drop creates life. The scientific foundation behind this miracle is fascinating. Burkina Faso sits on several underground aquifers, the Continental Terminal and the Precambrian Basement Complex, geological layers that store immense amounts of fresh water. For years, these resources were underused because foreign contractors demanded high drilling costs. But Traoré's administration mobilized local hydrologists, geologists, and university students to map water zones using satellite data and traditional knowledge from village elders. Together, they found water where others had given up. That blend of modern science and ancestral wisdom became the secret formula for success. By mid-2024, satellite imagery confirmed hundreds of new boreholes visible across northern and central Burkina Faso. Some were equipped with hand pumps, others with solar panels powering electric motors. The wells became community hubs, places where people gathered not just to fetch water, but to discuss farming, trade, and even security. Because water doesn't just quench thirst, it builds unity. Across the continent, leaders are watching closely. From Guinea to Tanzania, governments are realizing that infrastructure is not just about roads and bridges. Water is the foundation of sovereignty. Without it, there can be no food security, no health, no stability. That's why Traoré's 100 Wells project has become a symbol of what's possible when African nations take destiny into their own hands. It is proof that real change doesn't need to wait for international approval. But success wasn't easy. The drilling teams faced constant challenges, broken equipment, fuel shortages, and the ever-present threat of extremist groups in the north. Yet the mission never stopped. In some cases, soldiers guarded engineers as they worked through the night. In others, villagers themselves formed human chains to protect the rigs. The spirit of solidarity became stronger than fear. For 100 days, the country moved as one. And when the final well was completed, the nation celebrated not with grand speeches but with quiet pride. Burkina Faso had achieved what many said was impossible. Beyond the borders, Africa is taking notes. Kenya has launched a Hydrate the Nation program to equip arid counties with boreholes. Ethiopia's community-led irrigation projects are reclaiming desert land. Nigeria's Sokoto Basin Authority is mapping aquifers for long-term sustainability. These are not isolated events. They are signs of a continental awakening. Africa's future depends not on aid, but on action. The numbers speak for themselves. Across sub-Saharan Africa, more than 400 million people still lack access to clean water. In the Sahel alone, over 70 million live in water-stressed regions. The economic cost is staggering. Nations lose up to 5% of GDP every year due to water scarcity. But projects like Burkina Faso's show what can be achieved when leadership meets urgency. A single borehole can support 500 to 1,000 people. Multiply that by 100 and you have an entire region transformed. Ibrahim Traoré's initiative is not just about water. It's about restoring faith in governance, in unity, in Africa's ability to solve its own problems. His leadership has sparked new confidence among young Africans who see in him a reflection of their own aspirations. Universities in Ouagadougou are now adding field programs on hydrology and sustainable water management, inspired by the project's success. That's how revolutions begin. Not with weapons, but with ideas that take root and grow. When you look at the bigger picture, this story isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about an entire continent reclaiming control over its destiny. From the deserts of Mauritania to the highlands of Ethiopia, Africa's greatest challenge has always been water. And now, its greatest opportunity may come from it. As climate change intensifies droughts and shifts rain patterns, Africa's resilience will depend on the same spirit that drove Traoré's mission: unity, innovation, and courage. In the villages where the wells were drilled, Life has already begun to change. Schools now have water tanks. Gardens bloom where there was once dust. Women's cooperatives are producing shea butter and soap, using clean water to expand small industries. Farmers are experimenting with drip irrigation, learning to grow crops more efficiently. The wells have even inspired migration reversal. Families who once left in search of better land are now returning home. That's the real miracle. The global community has started to take notice. International organizations that once underestimated Burkina Faso now praise its model of grassroots-driven development. The African Development Bank has cited the 100 Wells project as a benchmark for community participation and cost efficiency. Some nations are even seeking to replicate the approach, prioritizing speed, local manpower, and transparency over bureaucracy. But Traoré himself has remained humble. In his public addresses, he often says, "Water is not a gift. It is a right." That statement carries weight, not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa. Because in a continent where resources are abundant, yet people still suffer, the real struggle is not against nature, but against dependency. The 100 Wells project has proven that with determination and vision, even the harshest landscapes can yield life. Today, if you travel across northern Burkina Faso, you'll see a new symbol rising: the well. Simple, quiet, and powerful. Each one tells a story of resistance and rebirth. You'll see children running barefoot through the dust, laughing as they pump clear water into shiny metal buckets. You'll see farmers washing tools, women filling clay pots, and elders smiling as they remember the days when finding water meant despair. Now it means hope. Africa's future will be built not by foreign investors or international agencies, but by the hands of its own people. The 100 Wells in 100 days stands as proof that leadership can change lives not with speeches, but with solutions. The miracle of water is not divine intervention, it's human determination. So, when the world looks at Burkina Faso and sees what was once called one of the poorest nations now leading a movement of self-reliance, it must ask, what else is Africa capable of when it believes in itself? Because if a nation can bring water to its people in 100 days, what could an entire continent achieve in 100 months? Perhaps the answer lies not in waiting for the world, but in digging deeper, just as Traoré did. And that's the story of a leader who turned dust into destiny, who proved that the true wealth of a nation is not gold or oil, but the courage to act. 100 Wells, 100 days. One united Africa rising from the ground up, powered by hope, by water, and by the unbreakable will of its people.